Welcome back, Better Babes. How are you? I missed you. I hope you are thriving. Today, we are going to talk about something so important. Are we allowed to sing money, money, money? It's time, honey. We want to learn how to get ahead. In this economy, it's going down. Like, whether you're someone who like has a financial advisor or like you need one, or you just like don't know what the hell's going on and you just want to get ahead. You want to learn about the entrenched systemic issues that are like preventing us from getting ahead. Honey, we've had that. To help us learn how to get ahead, we have an incredible guest. We have Gatti Tassin, whose new book, Rich Girl Nation, is out now. She's here and she's going to help us to learn how to get ahead. Katie, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for having me.
I hate when people like are here to talk about important things and then I talk about outfits because like I don't want to be fucking sexist, but your outfit is everything.
Oh my
Can
goodness.
we please
Thank
like
you.
Do you know like who made this off the top of your head? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure this is a knockoff of a Valentino suit. I got it on a website called Luxe Dress.
Yes.
So that's
the
what we're working
flower
with
details
today.
and your glasses are so good. No, see, like your styling and also just like your like if I were a heterosexual, like or like
the highest compliment.
Yeah, like I or if I was just like I would want to be you.
Oh my!
Like you are so stunning. Your
I need
styling,
a minute to just
your
receive
highlight,
that.
your skin finishing, like just like your glam, like everything. You're just like good golly fucking Moses.
You just made my day. Thank you so much.
Girl, we are going to two different parties, but that's fine. I was trying to give you like
Casual,
Butch
relaxed.
Trade or something,
Oh
just
my
like
God.
just like white shirt and jeans.
I was actually wearing almost that exact outfit this morning. And then I was like, well, I'm going to go meet Jonathan Van Ness. So I feel like I kind of have to like show out a little bit.
I should have showed out harder. I'm like trying to get, I don't know what's happening, but I love your outfit and thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
Okay, wait. So congratulations on your new book.
Thank you.
I always want to, did you do the audiobook for it too?
I did.
Okay, so you guys, if you're in love with Katie's voice after this, you should get the audiobook
You
yesterday.
can't get enough. Yeah.
No, but so you're also a podcast host and now an author. You're breaking down complex financial topics in a way that's relatable and empowering. I think for me, I like pre-Queer Eye, I just lived in this like perpetual state of overdraft and like never.
As many people do.
And I just was like trying to make money as fast as I was like spending it. And I just really wasn't planning at all.
Mm-hmm.
Then Queer Eye happened. I did the same thing. But just much bigger stakes and just the exact same sort of irresponsibility and impulsivity. Didn't change a thing.
Just scale it up.
Yeah, just scaled it up. Much razor's edge. A lot of heartbreak. A lot of stress. A lot of turmoil. Then entered Tori Dunlap. Then I was like, honey, no more. I'm getting in control of this. I'm getting in front of this. And I have made such progress in these last few years. I'm so proud of like, but what I learned is that like ostriching and sticking my head in the sand and thinking that it was just like this mathematical thing. Cause Tori was the one who like uncovered for me that it was actually, there was like an emotional link.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't until with money. And it wasn't until that where I was like, oh, if that's resonating with anyone, I just want to let you know that you can make progress. But since I started talking about this more, I just talk to so many people and hear so many people who are just, they do not make enough to feel like they can save.
Yep.
And so for those people, that pisses me off. Like not at them. I want them to be able to save, and it makes me mad that people are like working 2 and 3 jobs and still
like
don't have it.
offends your humanity, right?
Yes.
You're like, no one should be in that position. Absolutely.
So, but then I always think as like an entrepreneur and like as a business owner, like I always think about this idea of like, I don't want to leave like easy money on the table. Like if there's something that like I could do that's like not going to take that much extra, like why wouldn't I do it? So for people that are just like trying to get ahead, they're paycheck to paycheck, they're not making enough. What are some things that they could do to like not leave money on the table?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. So I do think that you're highlighting 2 very distinct financial experiences. And one is, okay, I actually am being paid exploitatively low wages. If I have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, there's no amount of cutting back or restriction that is going to make that situation better, right? The answer is we have to find a way to get more money coming in. And then the other side of what you're highlighting is, okay, you're somebody who under our current capitalist system, through your talent, through luck, through opportunity, like you are succeeding and you do have a lot of money coming in. And now it's, okay, how do I manage this? And what do I do with it? But what I love about what you highlighted about your story going from one end of the spectrum to the other is that, have you ever heard the phrase money is an amplifier?
No, but that makes sense.
So The idea is that money tends to amplify traits and qualities that you may have already had. So if you have an avoidant relationship with money and then you get more of it, I think we have this idea that, oh, well, if I just had more, then I wouldn't be avoidant anymore. If I just had more, then I could invest, right? And in some cases, that is true. The 2 to 3 job situation, low wage workers, like 25% of the American population is making somewhere around $12 an hour. That is not livable, right? But for some people, with a plan and with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of help, they really could make a big difference in their own lives by getting started, earlier rather than later, hopefully. So that was what really drew me to the subject when I was in my early 20s. I wasn't earning that much, but I did feel like I was on that hamster wheel where I would work my job, I would put in my 40 hours every week, and every time the new paycheck would hit, it would be like, thank God, because the old one, I'm kind of skidding past the finish line here. And there was just one day when I was walking into work that I had this very stark realization. This is in Dallas, Texas. Texas,
yes.
Very humid in the summer. It's 8 a.m. I'm already sweating, the upper lip sweat. I've got my purse, my lunchbox. I'm hobbling across the parking lot in my little shoes. And I'm just struck in this moment of oh my God, I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life if I never figure this out. And once I started learning about personal finance, really just out of terror, out of sheer panic, out of that sense of being claustrophobically trapped in the process and cycle of working for a paycheck, that was when I started to realize, this stuff is not that complicated. And the fact that I thought it was and felt as though because I wasn't great at math, or, there's this women be shopping, right? There's all these cultural messages that we receive about how, money really isn't for us. Once I started learning and realized it was not that complicated, I began studying these compound interest charts and realizing, I actually don't need a ton of money. I just need a ton of time. That time will do the heavy lifting for me. That if I can just get some money in the market, then let it sit there for 10, 20, 30 years. That can be enough, and that can make a real difference.
If your dog could talk, they'd scream Ollie. My pups, fully obsessed. They jump, spin, and do the little feed me dance anytime I reach for their Ollie meals. Ollie's food is fresh, human grade, made in U.S. kitchens, and so clean it almost makes my dinner look sad. I went with the fresh turkey with blueberries. It smells so good, y'all, and their coats are shinier, their energy is up, and their poops, gold medal. When we got started with Ollie, we filled out this 30-second quiz. It was so quick, and they created a customized meal plan based on our pup's weight, activity level, and other health info. Hence why we ended up with the fresh turkey and blueberries. And that health tracking just gives us that additional peace of mind knowing our doggos are living their healthiest, happiest life. Dogs deserve the best, and that means fresh, healthy food. Head to ollie.com/better. Tell them all about your dog and use code BETTER to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Hey, Mark, order us some Ollie at 60% off. So I'm obsessed with that. I also want to figure out the how there, but I want to go back a little bit, which is Rich Girl Nation.
Mm-hmm.
What a good title.
Oh, thank you.
Catchy AF. So good. What does that mean to you? How did you arrive there? And what is Rich Girl Nation?
Yeah, so the Rich Girl thing started a couple years ago, back when Megan Thee Stallion's song Hot Girl Summer was very popular. I was in a time in my life where I was really trying desperately to extricate myself from the constant consumerism hamster wheel of beauty spending. Again, this was in Dallas, so it was everyone's turned out to the nines at all times. And I just simply was not making enough money to keep up, but I was trying anyway. So when I was trying to get my life together and this song is very popular and everyone's talking about how we're having a hot girl summer, I'm like, no, we're having a rich girl summer. We are taking charge of our financial futures. That's what this is about. We are actually not going to spend all of our money and piss away all of our capital on these things that it's just constantly going to be requiring more of us. We're actually going to invest for the future and really take charge. So that's where the rich girl thing came from. It just kind of stuck. And then when we were trying to come up with the title for the book, we really wanted something that kind of called to mind the idea of a movement or the collective, or how, I think interconnectedness has become a really big part of the work that I do and like what informs my perspective now. And so we felt like Rich Girl Nation really like struck that note well and tied it all together.
It really does. And I mean, I think though the gendered way that money is kind of entrenched in our society is so deep, and I think it goes over so many people's heads that they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
But I think about this one girlfriend of mine who did hair for such a long time, didn't ever get married. And because she was so fearful about the never getting married, when she got kind of around like the age that I am now, like 38, started spending all this money on facial filler, all this money. And she got to be like 38, 39. And this person like did not have the money to afford that. And it ruined her life. I'm talking like addiction stuff, like making choices that she really did not want to make. It was like not good. And the societal pressure on her to try to like keep up with the look, keep doing hair, keep doing this stuff, keep doing that stuff. It's so fucked up. And I remember saying to her, like, kind of this conversation, like, girl, with like what you spend on your face in like 6 months, like that is if an IRA, just like 1 6-month break, like an IRA on that, like, cause
you do know this
but
stuff.
Even back
Look
then I was like, girl, I was like $2,000-$3,000, like that could be like 100,000 in like 30 years, but like you're not going to have anything. Like you're relying on either finding a man, which was a verbal thing that she would do, talk about needing to find a man, and like that's something that like just in the salon, the amount of times that women have just casually talked about, I need to find a man. Like that, just because that's what women have been told for such a long time. And it's like, and so can you get into like, this really isn't a question, but like
the gendered economics of it all? Yes, please. Oh man. Okay. So I really think about the relationship between gender and economics in our society as what do we expect from women? And then how do those expectations shape the real options that are like available to women in our political system? And so in a culture like ours that is so rigidly committed to the gender binary, men and women both have to perform those differences in order to feel safe and respected. And like we know that women and men both face professional penalty when they subvert the gender binary in the workplace. So like if a woman is negotiating for more money, she is more likely to be professionally penalized for that. But the same is true for a man that is trying to negotiate for more flexibility or more time or these traits that like scan as feminine. He will also be punished for that. So we're all trapped in that prison economically. But I would say that what is most fascinating about this is that it's very predictable the way in which those ideas and the way that people cling to those traditional norms, you can map that so closely to economic precariousness in our society.
Can you just unpack more about like the different expectations of gender and how that's going to perform differently, like through, say, like parenthood? Oh
my gosh, yeah. So there's so much there. The gender wealth gap, just so we're kind of level setting, is, you know, everyone is, I think, very familiar with the gender wage gap, 83 cents on the dollar, right? And there are a lot of interesting reasons for that we can get into, but the gender wealth gap is even more dramatic. It's 55 cents on the dollar. And that's for white women. So like if you're talking about Black women, you're talking about 5 cents on the dollar.
So for every dollar of wealth a white man has, a Black woman has on average 5 cents.
5. Outrageous. So it's a very layered and complex problem the way that we get there. So in the book, I try to lay out what I perceive to be the largest drivers of that gender wealth gap. So kind of going in order from, you know, the silliest stuff, silly relatively speaking, like, you know, the beauty and personal care industry, like you were talking about with your friend, how there is an industry that in our current paradigm, I don't think beauty would have to be this way, but this is how it is now. In our current paradigm basically exists to manufacture insecurities that then you have to pay to fix. And it's a moving target by design. Like it's kind of funny when we look back in the early 2000s and everyone has like the tiny little eyebrows and now it's like, oh, big feathered and fluffy.
Yes.
So this changes by design because you have to keep people spending. It has to be a moving target that it's a depreciating asset. You're going to get diminishing returns on the money that you're spending on beauty. So you have this industry that your average woman spends $300 a month to meet this beauty standard. We have become very good at talking about beauty as a psychologically oppressive force for women. We are not as fluent yet at talking about it as economically oppressive. But spending $300 a month over a 40-year career, had that money been invested instead, like in the IRA, like you told your friend about, that is an opportunity cost of $1 million. So we are not talking about little costs at the margins.
$300 a month.
Invested in a low-cost diversified index fund that you can buy in 5 minutes online with a brokerage firm. $1 million over a 40-year career. So we're talking about retirement supporting amounts. I mean, your average retiree has like less than $3,000 a month.
We're not doing our roots anymore. Like, we are going to have to do semi-permanent roots.
So we have to be...
Because your line of demarcation will not be that bad.
Right, I know.
And you can go like every 3 to 4 months instead of 4 weeks. We can stretch this out.
I shifted from like full bright blonde to just like grown out balayage because I was like, I don't want to keep spending on this. So you have things like that, right? That's one area. But then you also have the fact that women do earn differently. And that is very connected to the caregiving gap in this country. So like oftentimes when people try to debunk the wage gap, they'll be like, oh, but men work more. And it's true, they do. Your average man, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, does work for an hour more every day. But your average woman works for an hour more every day doing unpaid domestic labor in her home. So like if you want to know why women aren't doing more paid work, it's because they're doing unpaid work. Bottom line.
Yes.
And if we don't think that that's going to impact women's financial outcomes and like the resources that they have access to over the courses of their lives, like we're kidding ourselves. So there's that. You have the fact that when women directly ask for more money, they're perceived as being more aggressive. So like when men and women negotiate in nearly identical ways, men are 33% more likely to get what they're asking for. And then you have to consider the fact that like women just live longer. They live longer. They are more likely to leave paid work to care for a family member. They are more likely to end up in poverty after a divorce. And so you basically take all of these factors that are just shuffling women into these statistically significant outcomes and you extrapolate that over an entire lifetime. And it's really no wonder that women have less wealth when they retire because the system is not set up to help them. Like in the absence of social infrastructure that treats things like care work as a necessity and like a piece of infrastructure like roads or public education, yeah, women often bear the brunt of that. And so it's not surprising, but I do think that the more, frankly, we can talk about it and like get people to see how these things are connected, the better chances that we'll have of actually changing things for women who are currently trapped in that system.
For someone that's like ready to get them, that's noticing that they're living beyond their means or they're just living beyond their means. Yeah. How can someone start to like walk themselves back off of this? Because it can seem really scary. Like I've just been doing it for the last 2 years and it fucking sucks.
I think that in order to get really fired up about your money and to feel in control and to feel like you want to make those tough decisions, because sometimes they are hard decisions, I think you have to step back and think about the grander vision for your life and what it is that you really want. For me, I really wanted freedom and autonomy from a paycheck more than anything. I'm not sure why I had a quarter life crisis after I started working full time, but it was that endless expanse of the 40 years ahead of me that even though I liked my job, I liked my workplace, there was nothing wrong with it, I felt inescapably claustrophobic about it. And I said, I need to find a solution that will allow me to move freely around this world in a way that I can take risks and do work that I care about. And I don't want to feel like I have to be tethered to a W-2 job that will, pay me the money that I need to survive. And so that was how I found the like financial independence movement, the retire early movement, and really fell, face first down that rabbit hole. But I think that that's kind of the bigger picture thing is, what is it to you that's important? Is it freedom? Is it, your humanity? I had an amazing interview with a woman named Amanda Holden recently, and she told me, my biggest regrets in life aren't the consumer items that I didn't buy or the income that I lost. It's losing my humanity. And there's a part of us right now that I think, she mentioned, like, there are a lot of people right now that probably feel like they have to break a part of themselves in order to survive and exist within this system and to, work the corporate job and
start crying. It's like,
show up every day.
It's like so many, it's like this resonates so much, even like for,
Yeah. And so that's where I think it all kind of does come back to capitalism. So I think that it's worth defining, how is capitalism different than other economic systems? What is the defining characteristic? And I think a lot of people think, oh, it's about free markets, or it's about competition. It's about the ability to have nice things and to be successful. But all of that stuff existed before capitalism. Free markets, competition, whatever. People had bubble baths and champagne before capitalism was around. What capitalism is really defined by is that some people own all the things and some people work to make those things more valuable. That's really all it is. And I look at that and I go, I don't think that that's a very democratic way to organize an economy. 65% of Americans have no net wealth. Their net worth is effectively zero. A majority of Americans. So again, I look at that. I go, I don't really think that system's working. I don't think a system that gives some people billions of dollars and has 1 million people sleeping on the street at night, like, that offends my humanity. That is not working. And so we can still have nice things in competition and markets in a different economic system. But I don't think that only a small number of people should own all the stuff that the rest of us work to make more valuable. And I think that is the core exploitation that people can feel, even if they can't name it, even if they're not 100% certain the mechanisms and dynamics that are making them feel trapped, making them feel stuck, that no matter how hard they're working, that they still feel like they're under someone's thumb. I think that is really where it comes from, and like why my work focuses so much on thriving under and navigating capitalism, because it's kind of like you're caught in a riptide and you can learn to swim. You can work really hard to get better at swimming, but you're still in the ocean. Like, you are still going to be up against those forces. And I think that I want to help people look around and notice those forces, to realize they're swimming and to like see the water that they're swimming in and go, oh, that's why it feels the way it does. That's why I can feel like something is wrong, even if I couldn't put my finger on it before.
In an easy way, can you break down like the like levels of like how you would like upward economically like move yourself?
How do you thrive? Yeah, for sure. Priority number 1 is usually high interest debt. So like if you have credit card debt, or when I say high interest, I typically mean any debt that has an interest rate north of like 6 or 7%. And the reason that we do 6 or 7% as the cutoff is because we always want to be asking, what is the best job that I could give this dollar? Is it paying off the debt so I pay less in interest, or is it putting it to work in the market? And typically, after inflation, the average return that you can expect is around 7%. So like any debt that's charging you interest above 7%, like you're not really going to get very far ahead investing, because you're going to be making less than they're charging you over here. So I would say mortgage debt's probably the only exception to that. But high interest debt, credit card debt, that's like priority number 1. Your emergency fund is also very high on that list. So you mentioned, what am I spending every month? 3 to 6 times that in a savings account. You want to make sure you have that cash cushion. But once you move into the investing space, I really think that an amazing place to start, and how I try to orient and ground people in this decision, and kind of, it can be very overwhelming, not just because, there's a lot of options for what you can invest in. And like really the secret is like the simple, easy, cheap stuff is like the best stuff. But a lot of people feel overwhelmed by the fact of like, I don't even know where I'm trying to go. Like, I'm working toward a goal and I don't know what the goal is. And that can be very disorienting. It's also not very motivating.
Yeah.
And so there's this thing in financial planning. It's called the 4% rule.
Yes.
It was discovered in 1994 because back then, like 30 years ago, nobody knew how much you really needed to retire. There was like people would be like, oh, you need 10 million, you need 5 million. But like they were kind of just like, it was a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
And then this guy named Bill Bengen, who was actually a literal rocket scientist, like trained at MIT, became a CFP and was like, this should be a math problem that like we should be able to solve. Like there should be a way to figure this out. So he looked at 100 years of data. He looked at market returns. He looked at inflation data. And he said, what is the target that people should try to save and invest in order to retire? And what he found is that it is about 25 times what you spend in a year. That's what you need to invest. So this is a really magical number.
But that doesn't count if you're like a compulsive spending person.
See, but that's what you're hitting on something really powerful there, which is that it immediately, what just happened in your head that I just saw is that you connected the dots of like, the more I spend, the more I need to save and invest. That is the connection that is so important to grasp, because now it means that you can make decisions about spending and investing with the full scope of information about like, what does this mean for my future?
I keep realizing it keeps negatively impacting me. Like, because I have to keep pushing and I have to keep hustling. And then there's like, because there's certain things that I do that I'm like, really all of the things in my career, I love that I get to do them, but I don't have the power to be like, let me pause that for a year and come back to this.
Yep.
Because creatively, I really need to focus on this thing.
Yes.
But I don't have the power to do that because I've already like made my bet on several things and I need to do those things. But it's partly because my overhead got so fucking out of control because my life just changed so fast that then, and I didn't like adjust my behavior fast enough.
Well, and like that's what you're highlighting though is so important, because you also never hit a point where you are encouraged to think about those things. No one like steps in and goes, hey, okay, like,
you know what
let's actually be very intentional about how we're expanding.
I did, because the people who own JVN Hair went bankrupt when they owed me like $1.6 million.
Oh my goodness.
So how
stressful.
Right after I bought like a house that was like a little impulsive, but I was like, don't worry, girl, you're good for it. No, you're not. So that was like, so 2023 and 2024 was just like financial upheaval and so much like stress and learning and recalibrating. And so like if someone was like, okay, bitch, I got $20 a week. You're telling me I could open a 401k with $80. How would someone open a 401k with that? Like, well, it wouldn't be a 401k, be an IRA if they were like self-employed.
Very good. Yeah, you know your stuff. Yeah. So IRA it stands for Individual Retirement Account. Anyone with earned income can open one. And there's an annual contribution limit of $7,000 this year. So that's like the max that you could put in it. But there's also just regular schmegular brokerage accounts that if you go to Vanguard.com, you can open it. There's no limit. You can put money in, take money out whenever you want. It's very easy. But there is no minimum for investing, even if you just have $5 that you want to throw in. This is something that I actually remember really appreciating when I started investing outside of my 401ks. I was really nervous. Like, it is kind of scary to put money in the market when you don't really understand how the market works or why the money is going up and down. Like, I remember I put in $1,000. That was like my savings. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to throw it all in. And then I would sit there and like watch the screen flash green and red as it would, bounce up by, $1 or $2. And once I did that with that first amount of money that I was like, okay, I'm willing to risk this and like, let's just see what happens. And I saw, like this isn't actually that scary. Okay, now I feel comfortable putting a little bit more in. So I think that if you want to just dip your toe in it first, just to be like this, it's actually not that scary. And like, I can see what's happening. Like, that's great. But if you feel really like, you know what, I want to shut my eyes and like not look at it and I want someone else to do this for me. There's this amazing thing in the year of our Lord 2025 called a robo-advisor, which is basically, it's financial technology. So there's a company called Betterment. There's a company called Wealthfront. Sally Krawcheck used to have a company that did this, where you invest, you put the money in the account, you answer a few questions. This is how old I am. This is when I want this money. Here's how like comfortable I am with risk, yada, yada, yada. And it'll invest the money for you. So your only job is just putting the money in. And again, $5, $10, $100, whatever you have, that's fine. And I think that when we think about what we are investing in and getting more comfortable with the idea of like, well, what am I really doing? Is this gambling or like what's actually happening here? What you are doing when you are investing is you are just buying tiny slivers of real companies. You are buying a little ownership stake in that company. And so as that company sells products and makes money and generates profits for its shareholders, you have just bought your way in to being a shareholder. So like the people that our entire economic system and political system are built to protect and support the almighty shareholder, congratulations, now you are a shareholder. And you are going to benefit from that system too. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with like, what is capitalism? It's like some people own stuff and some people work. Well, this is how you start to own stuff too, is you buy those little shares of those companies. And you can do this through index fund investing. You can sign up for a robo-advisor if you want. Chapter 3 and chapter 6 of Rich Girl Nation are like really into the details of like what you are buying when you're buying an index fund. But that's really at bottom what you're doing. You're just buying little pieces of companies.
But if you're like a hairdresser or like an independent contractor person, look into an IRA yesterday.
Yes.
If you haven't, that's where you would want to start.
Yep.
If you are a W-2 person, you would want to like obviously know what your 401k things are.
Yeah, use your 401k.
You would want to like ask the questions to your HR, make sure that like if you you probably can afford to put something in there.
Yeah.
It maybe. Okay. So then back to the 4% rule. So does that not count anymore? Like, is that not enough now? Because of inflation, it is.
It is.
Still good.
Yeah. So when he did that research 30 years ago, they've rerun this many times. So like still holds up. They looked at inflation. That accounts for inflation. And actually it's quite conservative, just taking 4% out every year. That's really what we're doing here is we're saying you save 25 times, you withdraw 4% every year. So it's kind of like an inverse fraction, but it still works with inflation. The inflation in the 1970s was like insane. It was like 13, 15%. So even though we did just have a big spike, it was still historically speaking quite low. So 4% rule still holds up.
We were saying earlier, it's like sometimes you're just like on a rigmarole. Like you should not be having to like do 3 jobs to make a living.
Yeah.
What are some of the salary negotiation techniques?
Oh my gosh. So I spend all of chapter 2 talking about this because I really do feel like there are, of course, we all know what it feels like to have a spending problem. Most of us it's human nature. You get access to more resources, you're going to spend more. It's just how it works. Like our software is running on like a very antiquated hardware system. We weren't really like built evolutionarily to delay gratification. So
that's so true.
It's tough. I mean, you really are fighting human nature, but what were we talking about? What was the question?
We're talking about negotiating techniques.
Oh, yeah. But I do think that most people actually have an income problem that like, if they can learn how to invest, right, get your spending in line, figure it out, start investing, get the habit started, even if it's only $5 or $10, and then just go fucking crazy with trying to earn more money. Put all your energy there and just make the shovel bigger. So you're just shoveling more money, right? So spending in check, get the investing systems built, and then move on and focus on the income. So when you are negotiating for more income, if you are in a position where like you're in a corporate job or, you have the ability, you have some leverage with your employer to negotiate, there's one really good tip that I got from a woman who specializes in gender bias in negotiations and like how women's socialization in particular can undermine them in negotiations. So the tip is, because most times women are socialized to try to make other people feel more comfortable, what they will do is they'll make the ask for more money. I'll say, Jonathan, I would really, love to talk to you about a raise. I've done X, Y, and Z at work. I think I can hit this target next quarter. But in order to do that, I would like to talk about X, Y, Z. I'm asking you for money, right? But asking for more money is inherently a very uncomfortable conversation. It's an uncomfortable dynamic. And because women are socialized to put people at ease, what they will immediately do then is start backtracking and like offering all the reasons why, but I totally understand if it doesn't work right now. And like, I want to put you at ease. I want you to feel comfortable. So if I sense I've made you uncomfortable with my ask, I will try to do that. And the tip is just to stop talking, to make your ask, say, so what do you think? Boop. Silence. Let the uncomfortable silence linger. Let the person think about it, right? And I think about this every single time I go in to negotiate a deal with anyone, is I know that I'm working against everything that I've been told my whole life. Be a good girl, make people feel good, make people feel comfortable, right? And so I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind if you feel uncomfortable in negotiations, which most of us do.
My realtor always says to me, don't negotiate against yourself.
Yep.
I'm the queen of that. Okay, that's annoying, but that's good. Okay, so I think the fear is this administration going to so fundamentally impact the way that the market is set up, like that we can't rely on this 4% thing, and we can't rely on, because I think when I interviewed Sally Krawcheck, I think I remember, and I might be getting these numbers wrong, but I feel like she said something to the effect of like high 90s, like 95, 97, like a high percentage of people who had invested their money between like 1915 and like 1919, like whenever the stock market opened through like when I interviewed her, she was like 90 something percent of people either got their money out or made between like 5 and 13% or something, like compounded interest through the years. Like basically saying like through that data, it's like, it's a safe place to put your money most of the time. Like my stepdad, like I remember his timing like really sucked because like he, like the financial crisis of like 2008 and then he got sick like not long after that. So he only was able to go back to work for like a couple years. And so so there are times where like the timing didn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe you did have your eggs in one basket. Maybe you got sick. Maybe there was a financial crisis, like who knows? But she was trying to say that like most of the time it turns out pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, these numbers are reliable, et cetera. But we really see that this administration is like upending the way that financially, like tariffs, the way that we trade. I feel like they really are going to bat for big corporations. It's not seeming so.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a really good question. Very sophisticated, honestly. I think a lot of people are asking themselves this right now is the volatility that the Trump administration is courting and like the fundamental paradigm shift that it feels like we're going through and the way that they're pissing off all of our allies. Is this going to fundamentally change our financial system? And I have a few thoughts about that. I think at a high level, the most basic level, I would say that this is why international diversification is very important. That you want to own index funds that don't just track the US, but like when Novo Nordisk invents Ozempic in Denmark, I want to own that company too.
Yeah.
So there are companies all over the world, China, Russia, India, Europe, like all of these economies are dynamic and growing. And you want to invest everywhere. So it's very easy, by the way, to invest in international stocks as well. You can just buy an international index fund. So like I said, robo-advisor, that'll do it for you. You could literally Google Vanguard International Index Fund. It will give you a ticker that you can buy. So that's one thing. But the other thing that I often think about right now is, you know, we've alluded a lot in this conversation to the fact that our political system exists right now to protect the corporate interests and to, you know, protect those with wealth. The very wealthy people and the corporate interests in this country, like, are the stock market. So by aligning yourself with the fate of the stock market, you're kind of aligning yourself with their interests too, which like ethically can feel kind of gross, but it is in our current system, like the only way that regular people can achieve stability. So I think if like the US economy and the US stock market went down, that would probably spell the end of something much bigger. And at that point, we're going to have way bigger concerns than like, what is my retirement portfolio doing? Like we're talking about a much bigger upheaval that like you're really not going to give a shit about your investments if that happens, which like could be, I don't know, maybe a good thing. But yeah, so I really think about that as like, we have gone through periods of upheaval in this country before. The 2008 Great Financial Crisis, that was a global financial catastrophe meltdown. I mean, if there were ever going to be an end of capitalism, that would have been it. And we did recover. It took like 5 years to recover, but if you stayed invested, if you left your money in the market and let it recover, you would have been fine. The thing to remember is that this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is a get rich slowly scheme.
Yeah, that's really smart.
So like if you are investing for the long haul, which many of us are and should be, we're talking about decades. 30, 40, 50 years. And if you are staying invested for 50 years and you are just staying the course and continuing to invest, you are going to live through roughly 12 bear markets, which means you're going to see your money lose 20 to 40% of its value 12 times. And you can expect it and go, yup, this is how it works. Contractions and periods of pullback, that's just like an unavoidable part of capitalism. So you are going to experience that. But the good thing is that during the bull markets, when things are going well, the average gain that you see in those periods is almost 500%. So if you can stay invested, if you can, hold on tight, close your eyes, grit your teeth, and just leave your money in and let it run its course, so far it has always come back.
Whether you're someone who is a smaller investor and you've like got one of those like the wealth, what was that thing?
Like a wealth front or
like
a betterment.
wealth front.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I just want to type in the things. I don't want to have to move that around myself. Or let's say that you have like a money investor and like you've invested all your money and like that, you know, your guy does it or your girl does it or you're maybe there's like a non-binary wealth investor. So maybe your them does it or your they does it. And then you see something like Marjorie Taylor Greene just bought $19 million of this like, you know, healthcare stock or just like, or if you see that like there's something going on like over in this one place. I have, even with my person, I've been like, oh, should we like add a little bit of this?
Have you heard of like the Pelosi tracker? It just like mirrors all of Nancy Pelosi's trades.
And they do it for all of the Congress people. There's like one where you can track all of this.
That's how you know things are just
But it's like should we be doing that? Like, cause like my people always say like we are not moving stuff around based off of whatever. But then sometimes I'm like,
good. Your people are right. You wanna let things be. I completely understand the impulse to like, you kind of wanna, you know, chase the thing that seems like it's working. But really, historically speaking, I mean, the numbers just, they speak for themselves. Something like 97 to 98% of active money managers, aka people that are actively trying to beat the market, they don't. So really, like, your statistically best bet to get the best returns over time is to invest.
Unless you're a congressperson.
Unless you can get a job in the House of Representatives, in which case.
Well, it just really does seem, I don't want to like get arrested, but it really does seem that there is like open insider trading
how could there
on.
not be? I mean, they're making the policies. It's like if I am voting on a policy that's going to fundamentally change an industry, I now have a lot of really valuable information about like, oh, well, I don't want to be invested in that anymore. Like,
and it's like, how are we ever going to fucking undo that?
Dude.
And the money and politics part. Like, I mean, that whole like Elon and Donald Trump crash out where literally, I mean, to have a billionaire openly say like, I spent $297 million to get you in. And had I not, you wouldn't be in. I mean, he straight up came out and said,
horse's dose of ketamine being like, listen,
he's like,
you wouldn't be here without me.
But he's like, I literally did buy it. And you know what I thought was really troubling about that? You're going to like laugh really hard. There's a bit that I do in my new show about this. It's not that funny as I say it out loud now. But I didn't realize that like a billion, I did not know that a billion was 1,000 millions. Like for some reason, I had been telling myself that a billion was 100 million. Then it dawned on me this one day that like 100 million is 100 millions, but a billion is 1,000 of them.
Yeah, that's why it's so funny when people are like millionaires and billionaires. It's like we are talking about like an American Girl doll and the Empire State Building.
Can I tell you something about this that actually pisses me off as a Democrat? But I like this like actually really pisses me off about progressives.
Okay.
And like, I feel like I am one. But when people like Biden or anyone would say like millionaires and billionaires aren't paying their fair share.
You're like, this is not
I
the
literally,
same thing.
have I made millions of dollars? Yes. Do I have $1 million in any of my accounts? No. I have spent so much of what I have made, like literally of the total amount of wealth that I have made, when I think about what I spent on federal and state taxes, it's over half.
Well, so this is the crazy thing about how the progressive tax system works. Like, have you ever looked at a chart for the tax system of like your first X dollars of income is taxed at 10%, the next is 12, then 22, then 24.
Because I meant like 37 or something, but that's like for federal.
So you're in the highest bracket, 37%. But that means the highest bracket as a you know, an income number tops out at like around $600,000 a year, which means someone who makes $600,000 a year and someone who makes $500 million a year are paying the same percentage. Like these people are not in the same universe.
Because it does seem like I would imagine that like Kylie Jenner, for instance, is definitely making more on her endorsement deals and brand deals and like on her beauty stuff than like say what I am. So the fact that like me and a Kylie Jenner are paying the same amount does seem weird. Because like it's like, why couldn't you have like once you make over $1 million go to 41%, and once you go to like 10 million go like 43 or something?
Yeah. I mean, there are some people that are advocating for like if you have if you're bringing in $100 million or more per year, that like your top marginal tax rate should be 100%. Like they literally think that there should be a upper limit on how much money you're allowing people to accumulate, because the distortive effect that has in the economy, when particularly because so much of our economy's income goes to financial professionals. Like I think it's 25% of the money in our economy, income-wise, flows to people who work in finance, and only 5% of people work in finance. So like because of how our tax system is set up too, like if your money as a financial professional primarily comes from investment gains, your top marginal tax rate isn't 37%, it's 20%. So you are paying, there are some hedge fund professionals that
because they only get paid through capital gains?
Yes, I'm so impressed. Yes, because they are primarily earning money via capital gains. So all of their income is taxed like capital gains. So you have somebody making
That's not fair.
$500 million a year paying a top rate that is lower than someone who makes $50,000 a year. So I just wish the Democrats would do a better job fucking explaining that. Because it's like, I feel like I really get, like when people say like, oh, like millionaires and billionaires, I'm like, I'm literally struggling. Like I am still job to job. Like I'm 3 choices away from like getting super fucked up. Like, am I impulsive? Yes. Like, do I buy shit that I like? If I wouldn't have made the spending choices that I made because of my impulsivity, I wouldn't be in this situation. So I will give you that. But just this idea that millionaires don't pay their fair share, like I feel like I'm paying like so much. Like I feel, but also I feel like if I was making like, I feel like billionaires should be paying a higher percentage than 37% and definitely more than 20%. Yeah. I mean, I don't think billionaires should exist. Like, I don't think that is something, I think that to me, that is a sign that something has gone very wrong.
That $100 million thing, that's kind of like a thing. Like when you can buy every Birkin probably 10 times with $100 million plus like several houses and stuff. Like you really don't, I mean, that's like, so like $100 million is someone who's made like some millions of dollars. That's so much money. Like I've never not wanted for anything. Like I don't need a Rembrandt for Christ's sake.
A billion is 1,000 million.
And a trillion.
Right? And think about if Elon Musk has 400 billion
He's almost $1 trillion.
I mean, it's outrageous. And so this is crazy. In 1949, Albert Einstein wrote an essay called Why Socialism? And he essentially predicted every single thing that has happened in the last 5 years. He said, the problem is that under a capitalist system, wealth will continue to concentrate with a very small number of people. And once those people have that wealth and power, they can exert untold amounts of pressure and influence over the people that lead the state. And once they do that, there will be no mechanism for preventing them from essentially taking over. And like, what is happening right now? So his conclusion was like, ultimately, democracy and capitalism, they're not compatible systems. They don't work together well. There's a lot of tension and friction because democracy, I mean, they're just completely at odds. And so like when you have the world's richest man tweeting from the social media platform that he owns, hey, I put you in office. Like he's right. And that is incredibly alarming. And I think proof that like, okay, we're approaching some like end stage here where like people are either going to wake up and get it or they're not. But like the worst has just happened. Like someone has just bought their way to the leadership of this country.
Sometimes I wonder like why people don't understand it better, especially like people that are like not making as much and then vote for like Republican interests and like don't understand like a correlation. And sometimes I think it's because people want to become a billionaire. Like they're like, and if I do become a billionaire or like if I do get like 500 million, I don't want to pay like 50% of it or whatever. So because it like makes them think that like maybe they're not going to be able to get into that later. But it's like why do you think that people don't? Why is it so fucked up? And what do people need to do to wake up for us to realize that some of the really most worst things have just happened? And like, what can we do to like get through?
What is that quote? It's like America is a nation of temporarily embarrassed millionaires. It's like everyone thinks that they will someday because it's so built into the fabric of our country, like the American dream, like named for this idea that social mobility and upward mobility is possible if you just work hard enough and like pull your bootstraps tighter, right? And that is a concept that is very beneficial to those that already have power. But it also, in kind of a paradoxical way, I think, sometimes feels better to people than acknowledging how little control they really have. Like if I tell you, hey, you're just a lazy piece of shit and you just need to work harder and then you'll be super rich and everything will be great. Like at least that's in your control versus like, well, you know, it's downstream of policy and like this is a problem and that's a problem. And like really what we need is universal childcare. And like once we have that and like that feels like, oh, well, fuck, like I can't do anything about that. So am I just stuck? And like, you know, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle that yes, through the right combination of talent, luck, skill, opportunity, more luck, like, yeah, you can get ahead. But I don't know that for me, like when I look at kind of the status quo and the way things that are set up now, I'm like, yeah, but like we're the richest country in the history of the world. Like, is that really the best we can do? Are we really going to be complacent about the fact that like people are going to have to hustle, grind, and scrap just to like have a good life? Or could we think bigger and better about this? But yeah, I mean, it's tough because I think this idea of like people voting against their interests is like they don't see it that way because they've been told the enemy is somebody else. They don't see billionaires as the enemy. They see immigrants as the enemy. They say trans people as the enemy. They think that these people that are unlike them are the reason that like their life doesn't rock. And so, I mean, there's a class consciousness element to this for sure. But I also think that there is just this like fundamental recognition of one another's humanity and like that we are all more similar than we are different, that like kind of has to come first. And I don't know, I try to spend a lot of my time showing people that.
I notice in my life and in my work, I do this thing where I get really overwhelmed with stuff and then I want to make really big dramatic actions. And then if I do, sometimes I pull away from it because that was overwhelming and maybe it like made results that I didn't like. So then I always come back to this idea of like, why don't we do some smaller things that like will get us to the end goal, but maybe it's not, you know, going to make so much like wreckage. And so just as we've had this conversation, we're ending it up. I'm thinking like, well, what do we do? Do we fucking overthrow the government and become communist? Like
that's step like 27, but yeah, like eventually, hopefully that'd be great.
But it's like, there's so much like, I mean, communism has been like, so like, and then also like communism is like, I'm not even like advocating for it because we've also seen like, in like that also ends up in like corruption and fucked up and people like, so I love what Elizabeth Warren says. I'm still like a Elizabeth Warren girly where she says like capitalism with no rules is just like fraud or exploitation or something. It's some cute phrase, but it's like, we just don't have like very good rules. It's like capitalism could be, but it's like social capitalism or something where there is like some sort of rules or like where we do have to show up for the middle class and for our most vulnerable.
I think it's called social democracy. Basically like what they have in Scandinavia. It's like they have market economies, but like they have very robust social safety nets. They make sure people are taken care of. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, let's be clear, like there are so many steps between here, where we are now and communism. If we took like 3 steps to the left, we would be in an infinitely better place. So you don't even really have to advocate for anything radical to see like how things could be better. But I think where we are now, like with AI and where things are headed and how many white collar jobs are being displaced by AI. I mean, that has been the biggest shock is like, we thought that AI and robots were going to replace like, delivery drivers and, cashiers, whatever. No, it's taking your spreadsheet job. AI is really good at your spreadsheet job. It's really good at your fake email job. So I don't really even know that we are going to have a choice 5 years from now. Like we might be forced as a society into a position where we are talking about things like universal basic income, or we are talking about really robust social safety nets because the labor force is going to change
so dramatically.
So much.
Yeah, I just want people to leave this with like this, just to know, I'm always shocked when I talk about Republicans on social media, like how many there are that follow me. And I don't know if there's, I think it could be from Queer. I don't know if there's a lot of Republicans that listen to this, but if you're a woman and you don't think that abortion is an economic issue, if you don't think that reproductive health care is an economic issue, if you don't think Planned Parenthood is an economic issue, please understand how much of it is. And I just really want people to understand that if there's men listening to this, anyone listening to this, please just understand how much reproductive health care is an economic issue. And I think for us to have so many people in the United States saying like, well, we just gave it back to the states. I think most of the people that listen to this like don't think that. But
because like we know how much the federal government respects states' rights as we're witnessing right now.
But we really are casually watching millions of women be forced into birth, being forced into abusive relationships, forced to stay in abusive relationships. So to me, I just think that's like one of the next steps that we can do is like make sure that we like restore Roe and get reproductive access back, or reproductive health care back on the table as soon as we can. It could literally take 30 years from now. Like federally, it took them that long. It took from 74 to 2022 to overturn it. So hopefully it doesn't take us 50 years.
And they were working hard the whole time.
So we have to do that. And it's like the amount of times I grew up in school with like being told like, abortion is murder.
Same.
Access to reproductive health care is life.
Oh, that's good.
So I think that's
really
like a good place
good.
to start. So I love you so much. Rich Girl Nation is available anywhere you get your books. You can read it, you can listen to it. Katie did the audio for it as well as wrote it. So you did so good. Thanks so much for coming on Getting Better.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
We love you.